Good afternoon, folks.
It's morning.
Good morning, folks. It's another episode of the Gary and Mark Show, and I'm Gary.
And I'm Mark.
And we're coming to you not live.
But we are alive.
And we are glad.
And we are alive somewhere new today.
We are.
We'll keep that a secret for a minute,
okay.
but there's something special that's new this time.
Yes.
This is the first time ever we have.
First time we've not been in a tap room?
That's right.
Yes. See?
Yep. We have coffee this morning.
And sparkling water.
And it's good sparkling water.
It's very
good coffee, too.
Yes,
absolutely.
It is.
So we have a few shout-outs, as we always do. And actually, we only have a couple. But we have a brand new member of our graduating class of the Gary and Mark Podcasting University. And that is, Gary?
That would be Charlie Tucker.
Charlie Tucker. He's from where?
He grew up in Camp Hill, Alabama.
Okay.
He now lives in Hendersonville.
All right. And that's our only shout-out today. But you can have a shout-out by liking us, following us, sending us an email at garyandmarkshow@gmail.com or sending us $5. Either one of those will get you a shout-out. Okay, and so other news, though, from the big town of Watershed, North Carolina.
We have Fred Fezzo.
We do, and he also applied to the university.
He did, and we're not sure if he's a real person, and we just don't want to get caught up in this college admission scandal stuff.
It would be terrible. Our university is only about 3 months old, and that could close us down.
That could close us down.
And we don't want to do that. We being the only university in the nation where you can apply and graduate in the same day.
How about that?
Sometimes the same hour.
Yeah.
But I'll tell you, Charlie, it took him to the next day, but
yes,
that's okay. All right, so we are here for a big show today. And Gary, have you ever been on TV?
Actually, I have.
What did you do?
The Nick Clooney School Salute. This is George Clooney's dad had a local TV show out of Lexington, Kentucky, and my senior year of high school, we were on the Nick Clooney School Salute show.
That's pretty good. That's
and
impressive.
I imagine a little George was over in the wings somewhere.
Probably wanting to be on that show. Jealous. You think?
Maybe.
Well, I was on TV one time.
Yeah?
Yep. I played my banjo on the TV. And my mom said, "Mark, get off of that TV before you break it."
Oh.
And there you go. Okay. And so that's the lead up to our guest, because we have a real comedian with us today.
True.
A real TV star with us today.
And an author.
And an equestrian.
And
Probably all kinds of other stuff.
Like roofing repair?
Roofing repair and zookeeper, it looks like. We have one hound staring at us right now, probably already finished his
I also rent myself out my body for the car lots, the car dealerships, the inflatable thing. That's because I'm 12 feet tall, and so that makes a couple of bucks when I have to pay the horse fee.
Well, you would be good at that. That is true.
Yeah.
So our guest today, Gary, is?
Pam Stone.
Okay.
Stop. Sit down, please. You're embarrassing me. Excuse me, that group crowd over there, please sit down. They're going to the bathroom. I'm so sorry. I thought it was an ovation. But this is embarrassing. Yeah. It's amazing how you bring that many people with you to the podcast.
Well, we had to bring them. Yeah. Okay. In their little van out there. And dogs are out
don't
looking.
have enough coffee for these.
Okay. So we actually do have Pam Stone with us.
We do. We're not making this up.
And most people would know who she is.
Yes.
And I know from the TV show Coach.
And from the Hayrack in Landrum. I mean, that's where you're going to see me most often.
And I have seen you there. You wouldn't have known me because I'm a no person, but you stick out because one, you're 6 feet something, and two, you're just famous around these parts.
Oh, gee whiz. Yeah.
And so she moved into this area. We won't tell you where, but it's a town about the size of Watershed.
Just about that size.
Yeah, probably a little bit bigger.
Yeah.
But Watershed has a university, and there's not one in this town.
No, I don't know if there could be a podcasting university here. That would upset me.
They couldn't support it.
No, we always referred to it as the funny farm.
Well, and that's a good point. You actually give diplomas. We can help set you up in the diploma department.
All about it.
What about if we had a volleyball team? I think she would
Yeah, we this university was just
hold one end of the net. Yep,
we were just going to go academics. That's our specialty. But then we ended up realizing that we could play Clemson with 6 people and lose 150-0 and still get money.
Yeah.
So we got to thinking. So now we're adding some sport bit by bit.
So now you're learning to write grants. That's
no, we haven't gotten that far yet.
No. No, we haven't. Mainly, we focused on specifics as a school, like pencils with their name on them and koozies and maybe visors.
Yeah, and the diplomas. Those were really important things. It didn't matter about the course of study.
Gotcha.
Bookstore swag.
So I guess if people don't know what Coach was, because it was an ABC show for 7 seasons.
9 seasons.
9 seasons. You were on for
7.
Which is impressive. And I watched that all the time, so I don't remember 7 or 9.
Yeah.
But is it in reruns anywhere?
That's, oh gosh, yeah. And of course, we are
at the Funny Farm.
We're at the Funny Farm in the Unabomber Shack, and that is not Bonnie and Rosie. That's the reincarnation. That's Poppy and Posey. So they're just going to be talking. They're just yelling out crap. Every now and then we'll just have to deal with it. The show was on from 90 to 98.
And Pam played Coach Judy Watkins, the female basketball coach.
Yeah.
And always at war with Craig T. Nelson, who was the men's football coach.
Right.
Jerry Van Dyke was the assistant coach. What was he?
Yeah, he and Billy Fagerbakke, Luther and Dopper were both the assistant coaches.
And so you were saying Fabre was
Shelley Fabre, who I remembered having a crush, as a kid from the Donna Reed show.
Oh gosh, yeah, she's gorgeous. Yeah. She's so gorgeous.
Well, I did a little research because I didn't, I wondered why didn't I see this show? And it's because we had 2 small children then in TV time. That's
right.
So I missed that, but I looked and saw that at least 12 episodes were directed by Tony Dow, who I remember, of course, as Wally.
Yeah, exactly. Leave It to Beaver.
Leave It to Beaver.
Yeah,
always counts.
Super guy.
Well, that's what I wondered. Is he a super guy?
Yeah, he is. He's at least working with him, I found him to be quiet, approachable, very friendly. I worked mostly with the director, Alan Rafkin, who directed everything out there. And he was also a co-creator of... what was the show with Bonnie Franklin in Indianapolis with Valerie Bertinelli and
One
Day at a Time. He co-created that, and he also directed several episodes of the Andy Griffith Show. So he's passed. He's long gone now. But what was great was hearing those backstories on the Griffith set.
Oh,
so
I'll bet.
It was pretty special stuff.
So speaking of backstories, then, so how did you end up here?
Well, I'm originally from Georgia, and so I was in California for 15 years working, and I knew that, when you're a co-star on a show, you're not the star, so you're not making the millions of that, that kind of crazy money. So when I was looking for a farm, a place to live, I was like, well, it ain't going to happen in California, because it was like, you'd see real estate for, it'd be advertised as ranchette, acre and a half, Burbank, $1 million. I thought, this is just ridiculous. And the air quality and, the 4 seasons of fire and mudslides and earthquakes and mass shootings.
Yeah, why would anyone want to live there?
Yeah, well, the thing is, there's parts of California that I miss a lot, and it is a beautiful state. It's just, Southern California, that the Los Angeles area, not too attractive. San Diego's fantastic, and La Jolla and that area. And then, of course, Central and Northern
we
California
do have listeners
for
California, so we don't want to be too offensive.
Oh, yeah. I mean, in fact, if I'd had the cash, I probably would have purchased something around Petaluma or something like that. But I'm from Georgia originally. And so coming back to the South was a natural move for me. And I wanted 4 seasons. And the Carolinas are absolutely beautiful. That's why everybody flocks here. So.
And the language difference between Georgia and South Carolina, not too different there.
It's not too different, and I don't have that much of an accent because my parents are European or were European, and unless I start drinking, and then it just kind of, my R's get a little bit harder.
Yeah.
You get a little bit more.
Drop the G's.
Yeah, mullet starts growing out. A little bit, a little sling blade slinks in there. Yeah. But what I do
I love that movie.
It's one of my favorite movies too.
Bob, what's his name? Jim Boy?
Billy
Bob.
Yeah, what the hell? Everyone's
Billy Bob
Thornton.
There we go. All right. Right.
But it was, and I've always noticed with dialects too, it's so funny because when I was leaving California, my California girlfriends were saying, I can't believe you're moving to South Carolina. They talk like so stupid. Oh, really? And I said, no, we really don't. And in fact, what I do notice about Southern women's dialects is how they change as they age. Because really, when they're teenagers and, going to Clemson and everything, it's like their voices are kind of Valley Girl and everything sounds, their voices go up at the end.
Yeah.
Which is really interesting because I was just in England where everyone's voices go down in the end. So if you're talking to a Southern girl, she'll say, Pam, if you want some tea, it's in the other room. It's in that blue carafe. If you want it sweet, it's in the fridge. And in England, it was like, Pam, if you want a cup of tea, it's on the table in the kitchen, and there's milk in the fridge. And I always thought I'd love to get those two together.
And what would it sound like?
I think it would sound something like this. I think it'd be like, why is it everything you say sounds like a question? It really sounds rather stupid. I do not say everything like a question. I don't. And and that reminds me actually of Robert Klein, the great comedian, said that Southerners do speak like it's a question, which is why the South lost the Civil War. You realize that because once they were on the battlefield and someone said charge, so it just didn't really go too well. So, but we go from that kind of Valley Girl speak, and then when these girls that talk like that, oh my gosh, realize they can't get a career in broadcast journalism because they talk like that, they become very designing women. They get very sophisticated, and then when we're older, we just sound like livestock. And you say to, I had a neighbor that was in her 80s, and I used to call her all the time just to hear her talk. And I'd say, hey, Myrtle, I'm going to the buy-low. Do you need anything? You need any bread or milk? No, I'm fine. Bye. And I mean, are you sure? Because it's no effort. I can get you whatever you need. No, I'm fine. Bye.
Yeah.
Bye. Nanny goats. Well, turn into nanny goats.
That's a good thing.
Yeah.
So, I mean, you moved here and you're a horse person.
Yeah.
So was that part of it, a big part of it? Or
did
you know
it
was a horse area?
Oh, gosh, yeah. I used to, every time I would tour, because I toured for like over 20 years as a comedian, I tended to pick up real estate brochures wherever I was in different states to say, well, what's it like here? And before I bought this place, I nearly bought a place in a little town in Kentucky, where you're from, in the area. And then I also nearly bought in Ocala. Now we're talking about in the early 90s when everything was very cheap, so it was almost like giveaway the prices. So the Carolinas, I knew the Greenville area really well because I'd performed here a lot. And then I hooked up with a real estate agent that drove me around and took me to Hunt Country. And I was like, how much is it here? And I was like, well, crap, that's really expensive. And she said, well, we'll take you to the new Hunt Country, Hunt Country adjacent, which is much cheaper over the line where the roads suck. Because South Carolina roads, I mean, when you're a woman, you have to wear a cup. That's a problem, So she brought me to this place, which was... basically, we rebuilt this house. As you can see, I live in an IHOP. It doesn't matter what you do with an A-frame. It doesn't matter how you try to decorate it. You still live in a pancake house. And it was basically a drug dealer lived here prior to this. It had that fake brown paneling and subfloor with a brown shag carpet on it. It was basically a little crack house on the prairie.
You're describing my house right now. So.
Yeah. Oh, really? I'm terribly sorry for that.
That's okay.
It might be time to get a little bit of an upgrade on there. But upstairs is a master bedroom, and there's a deck that goes out that overlooks the woods, and there was a hot tub up there. And so the place evidently was on the market for a long time, and because there was a good amount of acreage with it. I got it because I thought this is great. It's private, tons of privacy where we are, lots of established pasture. I had to fence it, had to build a barn, all this stuff. But right after I bought it, Don at the hay rack, who was still working for the police department, came down the driveway and said, oh, you're the one who bought this place. And I was like, yeah. And he said, you know about the murder? Dun, dun, dun. And I was like, what murder? And he said, well, they weren't able to really prove if it was a murder, but, it was a guy that, Ricky, because every Southerner always has a man, last name begins with a vowel. Yeah, I don't care how old you are. You can meet somebody. Have you met my brother Donnie? And Donnie's 90. They never comes Donald. It's Donnie. So he says, no, Ricky was in the hot tub and he was in there and went under the water and nobody reported missing for 5 days.
Now, when you bought this, the hot tub was still there.
The hot tub was still there.
But Ricky wasn't in the hot tub.
Ricky was in the hot tub when it happened, and the hot tub was on for 5 days. And I said, so what was that like? And he said, you ever boiled a chicken? He said, we needed nets to get. So we actually, before I knew his name was Ricky, we used to call him, Paul and I used to refer to the ghost, because we thought we had ghost for a while, as Stu, because we thought that was appropriate. It was a bit of a boiling bag death. But no, we had to pay to have the hot tub removed. It was huge. It seated like 6 people, and I think those things are petri dishes anyway. So
yes.
So anyway, he had, and then there was a legend that that Ricky had buried something like $30,000 or $50,000 on the property, and so I had my metal detector.
Have you ever had any other people out here sneaking around with metal detectors?
No, and I think Ricky wasn't real bright, from what I understand, and he would like lend people his truck, and his friends would call him. This was all on record, according to people that knew him. They were like, "Ricky, you missing anything?" "No, why?" And they said, "Well, we opened the toolbox in the back of the truck, and there's like $100,000 in cash back here." I was wondering where I put that. So, yeah.
Boy.
Yeah. So I did look with a metal detector, because evidently it was buried where the old barn was. But I'm thinking Ricky probably didn't think to bury it in like anything metal. Probably stuck it in a hefty bag.
It's reminding me of Secondhand Lions now.
Yeah.
See that movie?
No.
No. Okay. Well, yeah. 2 rich uncles had money hidden away, but they were legal. So, yeah.
Michael Caine.
I love
Robert Duvall together.
Great.
And it's based on, who's the cartoonist? It's not Burt Breathitt, is it? But it's a guy who used to do a syndicated cartoon column who wrote it. It's a sweet story.
That's a good movie.
But, I want to get back. Now, you've been here, what, about 15, 20 years?
20 years now.
Okay. So, having read that you left Marietta, or left Kennesaw College.
I was actually asked to leave Kennesaw College. Let's just be honest here.
We could hear that one.
Yeah. No, I just had suck grades. I hated being there.
And so,
I know the feeling. Yeah.
Then off you went to California?
Yeah, well, I was putting myself through college, and so I was waitressing at the Punchline in Sandy Springs, the comedy club there.
So is that where this? Yeah,
that's where I started
stand up.
Let's stand up. Let's back up 1 minute.
Yeah.
Were you the class clown? Were you funny as a 6-year-old or 8-year-old?
No, I was just so tall and skinny. I was really emotionally crippled because I was really picked on a lot. So I was pretty quiet in school, and I was, if I said anything, the worst noise you can hear is from a beautiful popular girl going. So I just never said anything. But once I started waiting tables there, I felt freer to I always love making people laugh. The dogs are the worst hecklers at all. Come here. But the other waitresses said, you need to get up on stage. You should do open mic night. And the Punchline was the premier country in the Southeast. I mean, you had Caroline's in New York and the Improv in New York and out on the West Coast. And when the Atlanta Punchline opened, I mean, it was massive hugely successful, packed every night. And we got the cream of the crop in that club. I mean, Jay Leno would come through. I mean, name it, and they came through that club. The top, Seinfeld, twice a year. And so I'd be sitting in the back of the room after I'd taken everybody their drinks, watching the show, thinking, this just can't be that hard. And I knew what they were making because, when we'd go upstairs to the office to count out our money and our, our invoices and our tips at the end of the night, we used to hang with the manager and go drinking. And I knew exactly what these people were being paid. And I thought, screw college. This, why the hell? Because I was studying journalism.
Yeah.
Actually, English at Kennesaw at the time, because I would have had to have gone downtown to Georgia State to finish a journalism degree. And I thought, this is so much easier. Because all I ever wanted was a job that I could ride my horses during the day. That was it. And I thought, if I do this, and here's where my thinking was, this is how naive I was. If I get 20 minutes of material together, I could be an opening act. Because back then in the 80s, they were making $300 a week. And I thought, okay, I could make, an extra $600 a month, which would be great, and could supplement because I was teaching writing then. And that's where my brain was. It wasn't going to sitcoms or anything like that.
Right.
But I had a knack for it, and I was headlining within 3 years, which is pretty rare. And I was in my 4th year, and I had moved to California at that point because I met a comic of course, and fell in love and was out there. And 2 producers of Coach happened to be in the audience one night when I was on stage, and came up to me afterwards and said, we'd love to talk to you because we're writing a pilot sitcom about a Southern woman that goes to Washington, D.C., wins a Senate seat. And we think it could be pretty funny. Would you be interested? Well, of course. And they said, we just have to wind up the show that we're writing right now, which is a mid-season replacement. And as soon as we're done with that, we can start the pilot. And my manager and I said, well, what is that show? And they said, it's called Coach. And I said, oh, I haven't heard of that. And he said, yeah, you and the rest of the country. He said, it'll be done soon. It's like, number 70 in the rate. It just gets stuck in there when another show gets canceled. So I didn't hear anything from them. And then 6 months later, my manager gets a call, and they said, well, believe it or not, ABC just freaking loves Coach. And they believe in it, and they've ordered a run for it for 21 episodes, which never happens today. I mean, if you sell a pilot, you might get 1 to 2, an order for 1 to 2.
Episodes?
Oh yeah. I mean, they just don't put the money into it unless they know it's going to be a hit. So the fact that they had this order for this many episodes was incredible. And they said, we've written a part that we think Pam should come in and read for. And when I went and read for the part, it was so obviously written for me. But they're not going to tell you that, because they're going to negotiate bucks. And once they invite you to have the part, then you ask for a lot more money than if you just audition you and every other 6-foot-tall chick in Hollywood. So got the part, and it was going to be just a guest part, just a one-time guest part. And then it turned into, a regular gig for years, which was, nice, yay me. So it was, that's how it happened.
Wow. So, just again, I like to go back in time. Your first stand-up professional gig, what was that like when you first went on stage and this was you?
So my first, I would say the first time that I went up on stage was open mic night, and I killed. I absolutely killed. And I just did like 5 minutes of being tall and skinny jokes. So, and I always said, had I bombed, I don't think I would have had the guts to do it again. And because I knew the club so well, it wasn't.
Was it that club?
Oh yeah, It was that club because I felt at home there. Yeah. And yet still I was nervous all day. Like couldn't eat anything. Like oh my God. But it was packed. The audience was incredible. And I remember driving home that night. Saying, I'm going to be a comic. This is just stupid to do anything else. Why would anybody do anything else when they could do this for a living? So. My first professional gig then was at the Punchline, opening up for Paul Reiser. So I did that for a week. My second professional gig was touring with Jay Leno for 3 weeks. So I started with the best of the best of the best of the best.
So how long is a warm up? Is like 15
20 minutes.
20 minutes.
Yeah, 15 to 20, and then you MC the rest of the show. And Jay would watch my act every night, and then he would like give me feedback, and it was great. He was terrific.
I know you still do some stand-up, a lot actually, and we ought to give
well, actually, sitting down here, she's been pretty
That's true.
funny
You could do either one. So when you get to be our age, you don't feel bad about sitting
I'm not that far behind you.
Well, I guess that's true, but...
So, who were your kind of heroes
for comedy?
Yeah.
Well, the Jay Leno that I grew up with, when he was doing stand-up before he got the Tonight Show, when he was still a little bit darker, when he was a little bit more dangerous, when I worked with him, he'd done like 25 Lettermans, and he had a huge following. And I just thought he was brilliant. And there was a comedian in Canada who's since passed, Michael McDonald, was one of the most dangerous comics I've ever seen. Bill Hicks was another one.
When you say dangerous, in what way
just material that you're like, whoa.
Oh.
Shit. I can't believe he's going there. Like some really dark stuff, not vulgar, but just some like really unsettling, uncomfortable stuff. It's just a place that you watch people's brains. And Mike, in particular, number one, he looked like Eddy, little cousin Eddy on the Addams Family.
Oh yeah.
Yeah. He had the Widow's Peak, Widow's Peak, and he was manic on stage. He was absolutely manic, but some of the material he did was absolutely brilliant, and not many people know who he is. He was huge in Canada, had television specials, sitcoms. Not a lot of people knew him, but Sam Kinison in the early days was excellent. So many, but I mean, I don't know who anybody is now because I don't keep up with it. But and of course Carlin, and of course Pryor.
Those are my, me just on the other end. Those are two of my favorites. Yeah,
Carlin was probably the most prolific comedian out there, just writing That's all he did. I mean, it defined him. It's what it did. It's what he wanted to do.
So do you sit down and your computer and write jokes? You just have things in your head.
They just come out. Yeah, I mean, it just comes. It's like it's generally a visual, like the car dealership thing, And then I act that out on stage because I'm so tall and so skinny, and I'm like, I'm doubling. And as soon as I see that, I'm like, that's going to work. That's going to be funny. And actually, when I did my radio show for 10 years, I would say my comedy chops were the fastest then because I've always done improv. But man, when you have to do 2 hours of material, because I did entertainment talk.
That show was 2 hours long?
It was 2 hours, from 10 to 12.
And she was doing this live in the Unabomber Shack.
Yeah, in the Unabomber Shack, Monday through Friday. And it was, the show was incredibly funny. I mean, we won quite a few awards for that, and I had a crew that was excellent, that was surrounded me, Arrow Collins and Anthony Michaels.
But the crew was in Charlotte.
They were in Charlotte.
So you're sitting in that shack by yourself?
By myself with Pip. I had my sidekick Pip, who would refuse to speak, and she would talk with bells. She had her yes, no, or bell no. And she had this great illustrious background. She had been in real life. She had been a model. She'd been discovered at age 17 by 17 magazine.
Perfect.
She used to date Al Pacino. She went out with OJ a couple of times, and she, Studio 54. So she had this incredible backstory that we used to talk about all the time, but she would not contribute to the conversation, and she refused to be photographed for, when we were doing publicity shots or personal appearances. So it made this wonderful, persona of who is this? Why would you be on radio if you're not going to talk, for that? So we just had a really great core group, and I had no rules on it. I was like, when I talked to the guys, when I was introduced to them as potential producers for my show on that side, I said, you just better sink or swim. That's all I'm going to tell you. We're not going to edit anything. If you come up with something funny, do it. Do it in the moment. Don't worry about being funnier than me. Go for it. And
so they're talking as well on the other end. I mean,
it was like us right now.
But you only see yourself.
And I tell you what, when I went to Charlotte on the few times when I had to go in to do come to corporate meetings, that kind of crap. I did the show then in their studio where we could see each other as we're seeing each other now, and it drove me crazy because I was used to only listening and never seeing them. So when you only, when you don't see each other, you're really focusing on what you hear, and we were, and definitely I would go out of my way to make them laugh. So it was a whole different dynamic being in the room with them.
Can you find those shows somewhere archived? I'd love to hear one.
You can go actually on YouTube. Several clips are archived on YouTube. Just do a search for the Pam Stone Show. We did some. We had a Halloween show that we did that we actually got this guy that was a pharmacist. He had ghosts in his house, and he and his son had recorded a conversation on their paranormal equipment that was just riveting. I mean, and some very, very funny stuff as well. So
did you believe the ghost person though?
Absolutely. When you listen to it, I guarantee you will have shivers.
Because there's a guy who lives in Campobello who does ghost tours, but up in Southwest Virginia.
Really?
Yeah, you should meet him. But I took kids on this trip, and we signed up for this ghost tour, and I'm going to tell you, some of the kids may have believed it, but there were some doubters.
Yeah, well, I'm sure. I mean,
he would say, do you feel the chill coming through?
No, if you have to ask that, it's like, it ain't happening.
That's a good point.
Like, I have friends that have done a ghost tour in Edinburgh, Scotland. And, that how it's built on top of ancient tenements down below it. And that's an ancient city. And people say that there's people that come out of that with PTS that are so scared when they come out of that they actually feel and can feel breath on their neck and icy cold and people shoving behind them. I'm like, well, I don't want to do that. But I'm one of those people that's dying, who says, I'm dying to see a spacecraft. I'm dying to see that until it's nighttime and Paul's out of town. Then I'm scared like crap, and I'm sitting on the sofa holding dogs and a baseball bat. But I'm one of those people that claims that I want to see a UFO. Just not by myself and with the lights on and it being daytime. That would be cool.
One. I'm sure something is out there besides us.
Yeah.
What do you think, Gary? Somewhere.
Yeah.
There has to be, intelligent life. It can't be us. It can't be us. We're like the special needs planet, right?
Yeah,
I mean, we need,
boy.
It can't be us.
The special need. Yes, we are.
So what did your parents think of you when you first told them you were going to be a comedian?
They didn't have much say in it because I was putting myself through school. So I didn't have to come home and have my dad.
Were they in Europe at the time? Or
my dad had gone back. They'd split up. So when I was 15, my dad had gone. And
now, where did they grow up? Your mom's was
England,
from England?
and my dad was German. But he had come over to England right before the Second World War started out because his dad was a brewmeister, and he said, "You need to get the hell out of here because you're going to end up having a fight." So he came over as a bloody Hun and was put in a camp with other suspected peoples, like what we did to the Japanese in this country. So he was in the camp during the war, and then met my mom after that. And her family was so happy that she was dating a bloody Hun and a bloody divorced Hun, as you can imagine, in the 40s. Not real popular after you've been in the Blitz for 7 years and everything around you in your city has been decimated by the bloody Huns. Yeah. So anyway, that there was my mom was a professional artist. And actually, most of the work in the house is her work, except for some older pieces. So she was all about it. She was like, "Oh, that's nice. And can you make a living at that?" And I said, "Evidently, yeah, you really can, because there's a lot of comedy clubs. In the 80s, every small town had a comedy club. There was so much work. You were turning down work left and right."
Does Campobello have one?
Campobello did not have one. But you know what was funny? Campobello had a strip club. Do you remember that? It was called Moon Shadows.
I don't remember.
Yeah, I have no idea. Yeah, I heard the rumor about that.
I saw someone like you there one night.
But wasn't that place on 176 that was Broncos and now it's painted white? Yeah. So it was that. And I just thought it was so sad. I thought, how far down on the food chain do you have to be as a stripper to take a gig dance
shift?
A lunch shift, Campobello stripper has probably got cauliflower boobs. That's all I'm thinking at that point. Probably needs a little bit of support.
I would like to sit out front to see who goes in and out of that place.
Now that takes me back my first winter living year round at the camp. 73, 74.
You're not telling me they had a strip club at camp?
They had a massage parlor.
Where?
Oh, mercy.
Near where the Rainbow Laundry.
Oh yeah, I know where that
convenient. But
laundry takes an hour.
I did want to get the founder of the camp. I wanted to get his red Jeep, and then his son, who was the director of the camp, his blue Jeep, and then Frank Shell's green Jeep. I wanted to get all three parked in front of the massage parlor, and just have that picture. I never actually went in.
Didn't have the phones to take the picture then, like we do now.
And couldn't have photoshopped, but I didn't go in there.
Yeah.
But I do remember,
because I know he's on tape, but
But my late friend Randy Side said he did go ask how much, and it was like the massage on the table.
Don't get too detailed now, okay?
There was an upcharge if you wanted the massage on the water bed.
I see.
And that's okay. And that's all
that's enough.
Remember. That was enough.
But moving on.
Moving on from the so in the 80s, all these little comedy clubs.
Yeah.
And then what caused that to change?
Saturation.
Okay.
Like anything.
And things weren't funny anymore?
Yeah, it was too... when I started doing stand-up, I was one of 5 female headliners in the country, and there were so few. All right, here's the difference. When I would fly to my gigs, and I'd be generally lucky enough to sit up front, and I'd be sitting next to someone that generally will ask you what you're doing, especially when everybody else is wearing a suit and tie, and I'd be in sweats because I'm going to get in, check into the hotel, and do 2 shows that night. I'm going to be really relaxed on the plane. I'd be like, "Oh, I'm a comedian." They're like, "Really? Wow, you make it. Wow, I've never met a comedian before." And I've
never met one before.
I've never met one. Fast forward a few years, be on a plane, and somebody say next to you, "What do you do?" "I'm a comic." "Yeah, my wife's brother does that." That's the difference. There was still when I started.
They probably weren't making money at it.
Well, I don't know. I mean, that the difference was when I started out, there was maybe 100 really good comics in the country. Probably maybe less than that. Let's take that down to about half of that, about 50. And then there became thousands of comics out there. Still, only 50 really good comics. So I think what happened, we also didn't have the competition of YouTube or the internet.
Right.
And every TV show, if you remember through the 90s, every show was a comedy. Besides I mean, I used to do comic strip live all the time, and I did the, live from the Improv. There were all these comedy shows, cable specials, HBO Young Comedians, Showtime Comedy Club All Stars. There was so much work over there, and I think America just got sick of comedy and went back to music, that sort of thing. You can still, the stand-up that I do today is mostly private corporate. I don't do clubs anymore like that. I do theaters,
Well, and
try on locally.
Yeah,
we've got that coming up.
You got that coming up, and that's a fundraiser.
I do that every year, the Sunday before Thanksgiving. So to benefit Mobile Meals, because I'm that's my pet charity, and it's going to benefit the Spartanburg chapter of Mobile Meals, because we have to raise $175,000 a month to feed people on our rosters, and. So I always headline that. And then this year I thought, you know what? I've got a couple of friends that are awesome, that are just tremendously good comedians. Carol Hughes is one of them, and her stand-up has been going viral, actually, on Facebook. She goes by the name of Mrs. Hughes, and she's a housewife, and she's been in the business forever, and very, very funny. So I thought, you know what, this year I'm just going to host. I'm going to go out there and warm up the crowd and host and get everybody going, and then bring these guys out. And, they're so funny. And because we're such a small town, I don't want to get saturated. I've done a lot of concerts here, and yes, people do come in from Hendersonville or Asheville or Spartanburg to see me, but I just want to put as many butts in the seats as possible. And I want people, when they hear that I'm going to be doing a concert, that it's like, just trust me. You're going to get your money's worth, and it's going to be a great, great night, because if it's not me, I'm going to bring people in that are great.
And so I can just say that is November 24th.
Yes.
Tryon Fine Arts Center in Tryon, North Carolina.
You betcha.
And this show episode will not post. It'll be a few days before that. Mm-hmm. Hopefully there may be tickets left. Is there a second showing if they sell out?
No, we've sold out before, and then we get pretty full. So I don't think we can do in this area a second show. But
not going down to Broncos and just opening
not going to. Well, that Broncos is closed.
Oh, but you opened it for one night.
Okay, I could do that, and then bring strippers on to back me up before part of my comedy.
Bring
act.
them back.
All right, Gary will be there. Okay.
Yeah. So we'll just we're gonna do that, and I think that'll be great. And Tryon's a really slow town in terms of ticket sales. Like you'll have you'll be a month out, and there's like 20 tickets have sold, and then the week of the show, it's like, well, we sold 150 tickets. So they're like, whoa, So it's
that's because a lot of retirees and trying to wait and see what the weather is going to be.
Well, and it's just so humid. Everything.
It won't be humid, folks, in November. So it's a nice town, though.
Yeah,
so.
It's the best.
And we do have listeners from around the world, believe it or not. In fact, Gary, I haven't told Gary this, but we get this report from iTunes. Mm-hmm. And this is true. He's laughing over it. I can show you. I have it with me. We were number 17 for comedy in Vietnam. I'm not.
Holy moly! So that's where I need to go line up a tour.
No, I'm telling you.
That tells you how things are in Vietnam.
Yes, you know why? And here's why I worry, because we only have. You can go on our stats and see there only been 2 downloads in Vietnam. If we dropped 2 places, only had two downloads.
Wow!
So Vietnam is not our.
One of my writing students just went to Vietnam.
It's supposed to be a nice country.
So maybe she
was. Country.
She had a great time.
Maybe that was the one who listened.
She talked how thin everyone was.
Really?
She said you kind of expect it's kind of third world. But she says all they eat is vegetables.
Well, we're going to change
rice and some fish. Yeah, we'll get a damn McDonald's in there. But she said everyone weighs like 5 pounds.
And I was in the outdoor gear business for 35 years. Now a lot of your hiking shoes and backpacks are made there, in Vietnam, and the reps would talk about going over and don't you want to go? And I'm like, well, my age group, I knew some people who went to Vietnam, but
kind of hard to get. Yeah,
we didn't really want to go there. But it's in Thailand. They go climbing. All these.
Thailand in particular is a huge destination place for vacations. The beaches are unspoiled, as in Vietnam. I mean, you'll see absolutely golden, beautiful, unspoiled. If it was over here, there'd be condos and crap all over it. It'd look like Myrtle Beach. Everything built up. But there, it's
no
really
offense to our
pristine.
listeners in Myrtle Beach.
Yes, we don't want to
listen. Read my column in Myrtle Beach. My column does really well in Myrtle Beach, and even the people in Myrtle Beach say, "Yeah, it ain't like it was 30 years ago." So it's the place to go if you want to party and your kids want to have a good time. It's a family, but people in Myrtle Beach know the difference between Myrtle Beach and Nag's Head.
So,
you know,
one of my only 2 trips across the pond to England to go hiking, coming back, there were all these Brits on the plane going to Myrtle Beach to go play golf.
That's right.
I mean, Canadians did that, but I didn't know Brits would.
Brits go to Orlando or they come to Myrtle Beach because they are the winters are appalling, and sometimes in England you don't even get much of a summer. I mean, this past summer wasn't too bad, but the summer before was brutal. They had like 6 weeks in the 90s. Actually, this year as well? Like even in Holland had temperatures triple digits, which never happened because Paul has business contacts there, and it was hard as hell for them. But mostly when they have these rainy, cold summers and these endless raw, cold winters, hell yeah, they get on a plane and they come over to Myrtle Beach. They just sun, because even if you go to Spain in January, it's going to be rainy. You know.
So, we're not finished yet, but I don't know how much time you have. I forgot to ask that ahead of time. But yes. But you write books, because Gary just read.
I just finished Girls Like Me.
Girls Like Her.
Girls.
Almost.
Okay, Gary.
Almost.
Girls like her age. Because me, I'm not a girl.
That's it.
And I love the dialogue. It really moves in there.
Thank you.
And again, we talked about we could see this being a Hallmark movie.
I'd love it to be a Hallmark movie. I wrote when you write a column, because I write a syndicated column, and so you gotta. I go way back to Jay Leno's advice for me when I was a comic, and he was like, "You gotta cut the fat." You can't talk about Jay unless you do Jay. By the way, you can't do an impression. And he was like, "You gotta cut the fat, and your setups for your punchline are way too long. You gotta get to the joke, bam, get out." And he used to say to me, if I don't have a punchline every 7 seconds of my act, I got holes in my act. And that was a great thing for me to learn, like jackhammer, bang, 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 get there. So when you write a column, you've got to get in, get to the meat of it, and get out, and have a button to get out, what we call a button. If you write comedy or anything, it's got to end on something, whether you're writing a poignant piece or a funny piece. And most of my stuff is funny that I write. And so I write that column once a week, and I write in a column that's in 5 papers now called Ask Auntie Pam.
Oh, yes, my wife loves Ask Auntie
And I read it in the Triumph paper. You read it in the Hendersonville paper.
And
thank you.
I would say your Auntie Pam column, you have a great BS detector. You can call them out.
I love writing that column because I do channel Auntie Pam. It's not me. I mean, it's like it's Auntie Pam is Dear Abby after a couple of cocktails, and she doesn't give a shit. You know, she's just like, well, you're paranoid. Yeah. You're a control freak. She doesn't make any effort to be. She does. I mean, at some point, but she generally will guide you to have a glass of Prosecco, maybe a smoked trout appetizer as you hash this out with your friend. I love writing that because I can't believe some of the letters that come in. They're so funny.
So are they real letters you're getting? Or
most of them are.
This is a trade secret and you can't say.
No, well, I do. I absolutely do get letters, but I also will have people ask me like that I run into and say, I'm like, okay, well, I'll write that. I'll find a way to get that down because, I run into everybody in town. So that's very, very enjoyable to write. So when you write a column, when you write 2 columns a week, man, you get your chops are sharp. It's like really quick. So when I wrote that novel in 8 weeks, and I would have written it in 6 weeks had I not had the computer crash and lose the first 7 chapters. So I had to, and I spent a week pissing and moaning to Paul, like, I'm not going to write it. I can't ever come. And he's like, just shut up and write it again. Maybe it'll be better. No, it can't possibly be better. This stupid computer, and I knew I should have backed it up.
I'm saying you better back up. You back up now, don't you?
Yeah, I do back up now. And so I was like, all right. And it was January, and the weather was crap, and I couldn't ride the horses anyway. And so I thought, I write this stupid book like that, and typing away. And I could not stop writing it. I could not stop. I didn't have the discipline like real writers that, I write every morning from 10 till 1, and then I'd have lunch, and then I'd go back and write. I'm like, I couldn't stop. I just vomited it out. And I'd be here on this table at 2 a.m., and Paul would come in, and it's like, it's 2 a.m. I'm like, I can't stop. And, the tabletop would be littered with coffee mugs and beer bottles and, whatever the hell. And so I wrote it, and what you say is that it feels like a film when you read it. I specifically wanted it to move like crazy, and I knew from writing columns that if I wrote every chapter to be pithy and quick and really pacing well with the dialogue. I wanted each chapter to prompt the next chapter to keep that pacing going, so that if you were sitting up in bed and it was midnight, that you would be reading and saying, I got to go to sleep, but I got to figure out what happens in this next chapter. And that was specifically, I wrote it.
It's a page turner.
Thank you.
Although at age 70, lying down in bed last night,
he's older than me.
I had 10 more pages to go, and daylight savings being gone has thrown me off. So I finally had to just put it down and finish it. Get up this morning and finish it. And then
he was in tears.
Have a good cry at the table.
Thank you.
I did.
I'm so glad.
It got in touch with my feminine side. The parts in there where you describe upholstery and furniture, I get like, this is I couldn't write that stuff.
But it was real quick. I mean, I tried to keep the description really brief.
And you keep, to have all the moving parts with the different characters, and I could see each one in my mind's eye.
Thank you.
They seem very real.
Yeah, I really wanted very, very realistic dialogue, and I wanted to have, there was a character there, Lee, that everybody hates. And the funny thing is, we all have friends in our lives that failed to launch. We all have those people that we've known in life. They're like, they're always a pain in the ass. It's like they want advice. They don't take advice. They, she's going to make another stupid decision, or he's going to do this, and then we're going to hear about it, and that's all they're going to talk about. And you want to just pick them up and shake them. Well, I needed that character in there, and not just to have a woman have a pain in the ass character, but because it's a family dynamic. The book is a family dynamic with the matriarch, the woman who's just about to turn 70, her children, and the granddaughter, and the generational issues of these people. And I wanted, what I found really, really interesting that I wanted to explore was that, I don't know if you remember that film 7 Up that was made decades ago, you can probably find this. It was a documentary, and the point about it was, show me the child of 7 and I'll show you the man. And they interviewed about 5 children at the age of 7, and every 7 years until these people were in their 30s. They did a new documentary.
That's cool.
And you definitely saw, and it was an English production. And so you saw these children at 7 that were, from very good families and very well spoken. And they were totally expecting to win a place at Cambridge or Oxford. And they did. And then you saw the children from poor families that had no expectation of going on. And one of them ended up being homeless, blah, blah, blah. Anyway, the point was of the brother and sister in this book was that the sister was still the child that she was as an adult, and the son has his own issues anyway. But I love that dynamic of, like, when you get together with your siblings, and we all get together with siblings, you can be talking depending on where you're in the age structure. If you're the baby of the family, the oldest, the middle. I know this has happened to you when you talk to your siblings about your childhood, and you say, oh, well, Dad was so great or something, and you'll have a sibling say, what are you talking about? He was a drunk. He was horrible. Well, no, he was great to you because he sobered up by the time you came along, blah, 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 blah. And we have these we're dealt certain cards in our life. And a lot of times we end up growing up, that child is still there, and we see each other when we're with our siblings as we did as children. So if you were considered the baby in the family, you get together with your siblings, and you can be 70, and you're still like, and there was still assigned to you this acknowledgement, like, well, you can't know what you're talking about because you were a baby and you were always spoiled, and the rest of us. It's like there's not an acknowledgement that you might have changed.
Yeah.
And sometimes we can't get past those childhoods. And Lee is one of those people. David is pretty fine, although he's got his issues.
Yeah, and your descriptions of what's going on in their heads and how they think what they're thinking, that moves really well too. It doesn't. I thought that's hard to do without making it. It's not clumsy at all.
Thank you.
I wonder, did they at some point when you're writing, did you already have the idea of what's going to happen, or did sometimes the characters just take over and you had to follow?
That's why I couldn't stop writing. It's like all I knew was Lissy, the matriarch in the family, who was about to turn 70, had this dream that she had put on hold for her whole life, and by God, she was going to go for it. Yeah. She was a breast cancer survivor, took care of her parents, her kids, had a clinically depressed husband that she was forced to divorce because she was scared what he might do. The kids might come home and fine. And her struggle to raise that family and try to get it going. Now it's 70, and by God, it's her turn. Yeah. It's her turn, and how that affects her grown children. And absolutely, I had no idea how the children were going to go. I knew that I wanted a son that was more sympathetic to what she wanted to do. And the daughter is just an unhappy freaking person because she adored her father and still blames the mother for divorcing dad, that maybe if she just loved him a little bit more, he wouldn't have been depressed all the time. And she can't get out of that.
She seems very real. I think we've all known people who had that.
Yeah.
Who was the one in the Peanuts comic strip that always had the cloud over their head?
Pigpen.
Yeah.
Yeah. She kind of has this.
She has the black cloud of depression over her. You look at her, she's got the stale marriage, and the only happiness she knew, she peaked as a child. The only happiness she knew was she was a bit of a daddy's girl. Her brother was younger, so in the marriage, when the marriage was relatively healthy in the early years, she found great comfort sitting with dad in this farmhouse that he was an architect, that he had restored, and it was this, on the outside, this very happy home. And then his depression took hold of him, where he couldn't get out of bed for days, and he was leaving the family emotionally. And so she is stuck in that. Here she is, a 40-year-old woman. She's got a daughter she doesn't really get along with very well. The daughter's on the phone all the time and with a screen in front of her. The grandmother can't understand. It's all what we're experiencing now. Yeah. I go to Dimitri's for lunch all the time. And I walk in there. It's the best Greek salad there is. I live there. And I go in there often, and I sit and I observe a lot. And I see a lot of grandparents bring their kids in for lunch and dinner, and I see some parents. And I see both parents and children, like trying to talk to the kids or the preteens, and the kids are on the phones. And I feel so sorry for these grandparents, because the grandparents obviously are wanting to spend some time with the kids. The kids are incapable of speaking. And the only way they can interact with the kids is if they show interest in what the kid is playing on the phone for that. Well, Lissy, my character, calls bullshit on that.
Yeah.
And there is that part of her character. And when you read that, people our age cheer her, like, yeah, good for you, because I wish I could say that to my grandkid. Put that down. I'm taking you down to lunch. Show some common courtesy. And if you don't want to do that, I'm going to go, I'm leaving. She loves the grandchild. But she comes from her place where she's, that's what she's going to accept. And now it's even sadder. I see parents that ignore their children the entire time. I've seen that as well on the phone. And there's just no face-to-face interaction.
Yeah.
Gary knows I take kids on trips in the summer program. I'm winding down, but we 6 years ago said no electronics.
Excellent.
Made all the difference. Yeah, and parents love it. Kids don't like it, but they get used to it.
Well, and we have studies now that have shown that Apple knew exactly what they were doing. They were hacking into that part of the brain that's highly addictive. And I don't know if you saw this on 60 Minutes some time ago, and I think they used Anderson Cooper for it. That they said they knew what they were doing when they created this apparatus, and especially for children whose brains are still forming, it's like crack for them. And she said it's what we don't realize as adults. Our cortisol level rises all the time if we're not compulsively checking our messages. And she did an experiment where they wired up Anderson Cooper, and they sent him a text without him knowing. They had gotten a hold of his number. And they said, we're just going to talk. And they were just talking, and then he heard bing, and they just continued to talk, and he was fine. He said, well, I'm not going to answer it. And they were like, okay. And they just kept a normal conversation like we're having now. And they said, now we're going to take this wire off your chest and around your arm and your neck, and we're going to show you, actually, we were the ones who sent you that text. And this was your blood pressure prior to that ding. This was your blood pressure during it. So while you had to make a concerted effort not to look at that, your body was going through withdrawal. because you could not pick that phone up and look at it. Wow. And we are doing that to our health.
We are.
Well,
and that's the thing. Once you get an iPhone, you can't stop looking at it. So I told Paul, I said, I'm seriously considering getting a flip phone.
Well, and I had one until 3 years ago when I got an iPhone. But
yeah, I mean, use your iPhone when you need your iPhone. If you're taking it for a meeting or something like that. But the rest of the time, if you're going to the grocery store, if you have a flat tire or something like that, your flip phone will be just fine. If you're going for a hike and you're scared you might fall, take your flip phone,
Takes us back when the camp where Mark and I worked, we used to lease, there was a cabin in Pisgah Forest we leased from the Forest Service. It was Cantrell Creek, and the run riding trips out of there. The kids who really showed proficiency in riding, this was the big reward to go to Cantrell Creek for 5 days. Well, if you had any kind of an issue, it was 0.8 of a mile walk out to the road, cross Highway 280. There was a gas station with a payphone.
That's right.
And there were times I had to get out there and call the camp. And you didn't wear your telephone.
You didn't wear your telephone. And I think it was Julian Lennon, John Lennon's son, who posted, it was so funny. He said, remember when we were all growing up and how we all used to sit around the table and share Polaroid photographs of our dinners? That's right, we didn't. So stop doing it now. It's like you go on social media and everybody's posting, this is what we made last night. This is what we're eating today. It's like, it's this kind of compulsion that we want to share with everybody, like, oh, isn't this incredible? Look, which is cool on one sense, but we're not in the moment. We're not living in the moment of the experience. If we feel this compulsion to, why must we share a photo of some lasagna we're about to eat? What is that about? It's like everybody knows what freaking lasagna looks like. I'm sure it's great lasagna. We've all had good lasagna.
I can mention names, but I won't. Facebook and stuff.
But we do. I've done it. We've all done it. But what is the compulsion that we feel we must share every moment of our life? And
you should share these animals, though. You got some neat animals.
Yeah, the hounds.
Yeah.
They were supposed to be Jack Russells when we adopted them as puppies. They were
turned
into, but they're not. They're hounds.
Well, this has been a great show.
You are
thank you.
You're a wonderful human, I must say. Just very welcoming where we first pulled up, and
if I didn't have web feet and a prehensile tail, I would be a great human.
Well,
and so we need to say your books are available on your website, which is comedian
Pam Stone, but also at Amazon and bookstores and stuff. And
my copy came from the Hendersonville Library.
Oh, excellent!
And it was well worn. It is all beat to hell.
So we need to get them a new one.
Do you know that book, and I didn't even know this. I didn't know it until someone brought it to my attention, was nominated for the Southern Book Prize.
Oh.
And they take the top 3 and it was number 4. And those are nominated by independent booksellers. So fantastic. I was delighted with that.
So do you have another book in the works?
I keep saying that, but I just don't know. I had to hang my liver out to dry after writing that one, so I just don't know if I have the stamina. It takes stamina to be a drunk. I don't know if I have the stamina to write another one, but I can. I absolutely know where it would go. I absolutely know where it would go.
I bet you there will.
Would it involve some of the same people?
Well, everybody wants me to do a sequel to that, and I know we have to kill Lee. That's the thing. I know that's the thing. I have to kill Lee.
Put her in a car with the head of the law firm. That's run him over a cliff.
Right.
That's what
Richard Dick. That's right. Yeah, he was fun to write, and we've all known one of him too.
He was the only totally bad person.
Yeah.
Lee's got redeeming stuff. But
Lee has redeeming things.
But Dick has no redeeming character.
But it all comes out of insecurity.
Yes.
And that was the thing. I couldn't have somebody be a bad person just for the sake of having, we'll make this person a bad person, a good person. It was like everybody's issue came from a place of insecurity, just like in real life.
Well, we are going to wrap this up, but we have something to say and do first.
Okay.
You are a guest on our show. We've had a few now.
Yes.
That are real. Some
real guests.
But
can I just say tipping would be appropriate?
Well, we got something better than a tip.
Oh, all right.
Okay, because you heard us mention during the intro about our university.
Yes.
Gary and Mark Podcasting University.
Yes.
So as our guest, Gary's going to make this presentation.
Dun, dun.
Oh, my word.
A BS in podcasting.
Oh, my
This will
word.
look so nice in the Unabomber shack.
That's right. And this is with extra honors.
With
I've
extra
never
honors.
received anything in a plastic
That's right.
sleeve before.
And you didn't finish at Kennesaw State, right?
No.
I did not.
There
no.
you go.
Well,
You're BS.
and
Rabbit
there's
Island
more.
Resort on the back.
That is a sticker you could proudly display
thought it was
on
Rhode
your
Island.
horse van.
As we've heard that comment
We
before,
have.
yeah.
It's a gated community, and you don't have to go there. You just
I love it.
You just show off by having this.
I
That's
you
right.
love
don't
it.
ever have. It's a timeshare. You don't ever have to share.
We have
Even
a whole
better.
episode about that, right?
Superb. I'm absolutely delighted. I thank you so much.
Well, we thank you for being here. And folks, go to comedianpamstone.com for
Yeah.
more info.
And she's funny in real life.
She is. It's
That's-
Sitting
that's
down
helpful.
or standing up.
So we want to thank our sponsors. We have a couple real
You
ones.
have sponsors.
Oh, we do.
Actually, we
That's
do.
fantastic.
Green River Eddies.
Green River Eddy's Tap Room and Grill in Saluda
Oh,
Outfitters.
yeah.
And-
Heck yeah.
And we have a new sponsor just signed up this past
I've been to
week.
both of those.
Yeah.
LJ Meyers and Homeward Angels professional white dove releases. If you've ever been around,
Oh, yeah, right.
he's the one that releases the
Is he the
doves.
guy at the corner there on 14?
Yes, don't say that. He doesn't want people to know where he lives, but yes,
Well,
that's
of course
him.
you can see they're circling his house all the
That's
damn
right.
time.
That's LJ. So
That's LJ,
he's
yeah.
always
How
around.
does he keep the Cooper's Hawks away? from
Well,
him?
sometimes they get picked up, and so
And then there's Rabbit Island Resort.
she's now a member. We're a hair better.
And our
Or hair
first
better.
sponsor, the Big Whiz Pocket Buddy,
An
an
app
app for your phone for
Big
me.
whiz.
So we
Who doesn't
wanna-
need a big whiz?
We're about to have one now.
I
because
bought
we've all
cheese
had-
whiz, which is a little frightening.
So we want to thank everyone for listening to the show, and you can hear us on iTunes, Heart Radio, Spotify, all those places.
Vietnam?
Yeah, that's right. Get me the third person over there, and so go
Order
to
some young guy.
www.garyandmark.com for all the details.
And thanks again to Pam Stone.
Please, yeah, thanks,
And
Pam.
thank you. I've never been introduced with banjos, so I appreciate that.
That's
It
right.
is South
Yeah.
Carolina.
That's true.
I'm
So,
well aware of that.
He's Gary,
And you're Mark and I'm Gary.
and we are the Gary and Mark Show.
Yes.
And we'll see you in the next episode.